Yeah, I'm Apparat, electronic musician from Berlin, Sascha Ring in real life, and I've been making music for quite a while. When I started, it was basically techno. I've been like a rave kid for most of my life, and I think recently I opened up pretty much to different kinds of music and started collaborating with lots of people. Basically, most of them were my friends because I barely see my friends and I need to have a reason to meet again. If I rewind and think about it, I think when I started with music, I was just so overwhelmed with electronic music because I'm from East Germany, and when the wall came down, electronic music was pretty much the first thing coming over to us, and we started making parties in warehouses and like Russian military bases, whatever, and that used to be like pretty hard techno stuff. And I did that for quite a while, and then I moved to Berlin, and I think around that time I started to calm down a little bit, and I got more interested in like mellow music, especially like sound design, and because I spent most of the time in the studio, and if you sit in the studio and you're always working on hard beats, and it's really it's making me really tired at some point. Well, you know, if someone is gonna ask me what kind of music do you do, my first reaction is, dude, I don't know, I hate categories, you know. It's because I make so many different kinds of things, you know. When I go to the studio, I don't even know what's gonna happen. Sometimes it's almost like a rock track or a complete electronic, techno, industrial, blah track. So there's no way to say this is this and that. It's always different. I mean, it's a long story because I know these guys from San Francisco, Kid Clayton, and he's basically some kind of like the daddy of this loop-based live performance thing. He developed some kind of live performance tool out of Max MSP, which is a programming language. And he used to play with this, and I saw that, and I was like, wow, that's great, that's great, I have to do the same thing. And then he gave it to me, and I changed it, I learned programming, blah, blah, blah. And then at some point, I had a mastering appointment for my first record with Robert Henke from Monolake. And Robert Henke used to be in Monolake together with Gerhard Beles, who is running Ableton right now. And while we were doing the mastering thing, Robert Henke was like, yeah, we are working on this like really cool thing, and I'm not supposed to say anything. And after 8 hours of mastering, I knew everything about Ableton Live, which was basically the new cool thing they had in mind. And it actually became the really cool thing because it pretty much allowed everyone out there to just go on stage just with a laptop and be able to do an electronic music performance. And that's a cool thing, and I think there are people who do it a good way, and then there are people who do it the arranged way, which is a little boring maybe for yourself if you play, but maybe they have another like performance idea. I mean, you know, you can't really say the laptop performance is this and this in general, because everyone is doing it in a different way. It is a pretty tough thing to be an electronic musician, because I mean, if you are in a band, if you're good, you play a few instruments and you know a little bit about production because you've been there while the producer produced your record and you saw it. But basically there's someone who produces the record, and it's the one with the mastermind, and then there's a sound engineer, and maybe, depending on how famous you are, 5 to 10 more people. And if you're an electronic musician, you have to do all these jobs on your own. And I mean, being a sound engineer and knowing about how to make things sound very good is like a really hard thing by itself already. And then you have to be a good musician as well, and you have to like be good at arranging, so that's a pretty tough thing. And I think a lot of people think, yeah, well, cool, I have a laptop and that's easy, I can use the software, and then they make music, which is cool, which makes everything a little bit more like democratic, you know. It's affordable for everyone as well, and that's a cool thing, but still there are very few who manage to do all of these things very well, because it also requires a lot of experience. And I think now we come back to the point that it might be good if you have a friend and he's very good at engineering, you know, and then you don't really care so much about this. You just make a good song, you have the idea, because that's what I think that's missing sometimes in electronic music. People just sit down, they start jamming, blah, 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 and they don't have an idea about what they want to do. And that's an important thing. So if you are the one with good ideas and fresh ideas, that might be enough, you know. Just get someone who helps you to produce the whole thing, and it's going to be cool. Well, the future always changes, you know. Like a little while ago, I thought the future can only be combining different things, because it's really hard to do new things. And for me, it was taking like classic instruments and taking electronic instruments and like try to make something out of it. But it's hard to say, because electronic music is still not boring. It's not boring for me, and I think it's not boring for a lot of other people out there. So I think even strictly electronic music can be still surprising, and it just needs a few like kids with fresh minds to just surprise you and do something cool. I mean, if you look at all these like dubstep kids, you know, it's not like it's also not nothing completely new, but I mean, these guys are like 20 years old, and sometimes I'm like, wow, it's like really well produced, and it's cool ideas in there. And I think sometimes I'm starting to feel old if I think about this, but it's a good thing.